How we doing today? Okay. I'm going to show you how to do a quick release bracket. I bought this tripod at Kmart. It's a Targus, so it's fairly cheap, but it works for what I have and low budget. So it has a quick release plate that screws onto the bottom of your camera. Everybody has seen these. The only thing is, it came with this, and that's it. So I have a lot of other things that I put my camera on. I have a slider, I have a jib that I've made, and a little dolly, and lots of stuff that I've made. All I have is the one quick release plate. I don't have any other brackets. So I felt the need to find a way to make a bracket that fits this quick release plate. So we'll put the tripod there. Now, what I used is a piece of track lighting bracket that you would screw into your ceiling or your wall, and then your track light goes in here. And it is just about right for my quick release plate. I just have to modify it a little bit. The tools we need for this job are going to be a drill, a little square, adjustable square, or some way to measure, a tape measure. I have a flat metal file. I have a triangular metal file, a hacksaw, a couple clamps, and assorted drill bits of different sizes. Now, the only thing that I've spent money on for this project is for this little screw, little thumb screw, which will go through and hold the plate in place. So let's zoom in here, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Basically, what I'm going to do to start is cut off 2.5 inches of this bracket. So I measure 2.5 inches. Use my square to mark where I'm cutting. I'm good to go. Clamp this down. You could do this with a hacksaw. I'm going to save myself some effort and use a Sawzall with a hacksaw blade in it. So now I've got a 2.5 inch piece of this aluminum bracket. Now, the next step is going to be marking where you have to cut off. A little bit of this has to be taken off here and here to allow the plate to slide in. Right now it will not slide in. So we have to take a little bit off, and I just mark with the pencil how much I have to take. Clamp this down. Now for this one, I do have a finished one here. So I'll use this to find how far in I have to cut, and use the hacksaw. Now you don't want to take off too much of this, because then the plate won't fit tightly. pair of snippers. This is aluminum, so it will break easily, cuts pretty easily. Okay, any rough edges we're going to be cleaning up after with a file. But we want to make sure that things stay straight. That'd be a good idea to check how that's going to fit for when you cut the other side. Going too far. I'm marking how far in you have to go. I guess you could do this with a Dremel tool if you wanted to, but I found it works fine just to use a hacksaw. Again, take the snips and break that little piece out. Clean up the corner a little bit. And we test to make sure that it will slide in. And I think we're pretty close. Now the next thing that I have to do, and I'm not going to bother showing, is this little lip here that runs along the top. That has to be ground down. I won't bore you with the grinding, and while I'm at it I'm also going to clean up the edges. They're kind of sharp, so clean them up and I'll be right back to you. Okay, so now I'm back from the grinder. I've taken that edge off, so that's not there anymore. Now, rough fit, the plate will slide in there nice and easy. But I want to clean it up because I don't want to be digging up too much there on the plastic. So just using my file, just touch up the edges. Anywhere that there's rough spot, I just grind off. We don't want to be cutting our hands when using this. Working with the aluminum is nice because it files off so easily. To get it so that when you handle it, it does not cut you. You can make it as smooth as you would like. I don't feel any sharp edges. I just hit along the top here. and basically round off any of the sharp points. Because we don't want to be drawing blood every time we use this thing. That would suck. Okay. I would consider that done. So now, we have the bracket. The plate will slide in there nice. That feels really good. You don't want it to be too loose. Once it's in there, you want it snug. Okay? So now the next thing to do is measure with my square. And I just put this in and touch the back of the plate. And then I will subtract about half the width of my thumb screw. So that's maybe 3/16 or so. So I just took that off the ruler. And then I will use that to mark where I'm going to drill my holes. Now to drill the holes, I start with a punch. You could use a nail. Probably wouldn't even need to do this, but it gives you a nice point to start your drill. I use a small drill for a pilot hole. And then I'm going to use I think this is a 7/32, which is a little bit smaller than the wing nut or thumb screw. And then what I'm going to do is use the thumb screw to tap the aluminum and make threads. You pick the drill bit the size under the size of your actually I kind of did that backward. Use my ruler again to mark where I need to drill. Once again, I give myself a point. It actually looks like I'm starting to bend this piece. So I just straighten it back out. Right-handed, so when I put the plate in, I would like to be able to tighten from here. So this side I'm going to make just a little bit bigger, which is about the size of the thumb screw. So it will slide through there with no problem, and then thread into the other side. And when you're tapping aluminum like this, you have to work it a little bit until it starts to turn freely. But you can put threads in aluminum with a steel bolt. The aluminum gives way. Clean up the little burrs around the holes. Inside and out. Now that thread's in there tight, but I'm sure it'll loosen over time. And you want it kind of tight anyway, because your $600–700 camera is riding on this, so you want to be able to trust it. We take our plate, slide it in there, and make sure, oh, you'll see I'm too close, so I have to modify a little bit. I'll take just a little bit more off the front of this so that the plate slides in a little further. Plate will slide in. I have to file that down a little bit. Bend that down just a little so it doesn't keep the plate from sliding in. And now the plate is in, it's tight, and then we lock it in with the thumb screw. Now the only thing I spent money for this project was this thumb screw. I think it was like 40 cents at my local hardware store. And that's all there is to it. The only thing left to do with this, and that is nice and tight. I might even sand or file a little bit more off the edge, so it's not quite so tight sliding in there. Definitely want to be aware of how this is going to be rubbing on your quick release plate. You don't want it to be grinding into it every time you move it in and out. So you want to have it snug, but not so much that it's going to be cutting into the plastic every time. Now the only thing left to do is to drill a hole in the center bottom for my ¼ thread, which is the standard for tripods and whatnot, and put a coat of paint on it, and I will end up with a piece that looks like that. There's your hole in the center for mounting it. And there's the piece that's not been painted yet. And that's about all that's involved in making a quick release bracket to match up with the quick release plate that will be on your camera. I've only got one camera, so I only need one plate, but I have a bunch of things to put my camera on, so I needed extra brackets. I didn't want to buy a whole set every time. That would get expensive. So I had to find a way to make it work down and dirty and this does the job great. It does a fabulous job, and the only thing that I spent money on was this little thumb screw, and that was it. I've got a quick release bracket so I can move my camera from tripod to slider to dolly to jib, and I've got the one quick release plate, and that's mounted on my camera. Okay, so there you have it. Quick release bracket, real cheap, a little bit of work, maybe a half hour. I'll throw a coat of paint on this and it'll look just like that one, and I'll put it on a device. So until next time, keep shooting pictures and videos.